The movie hot takes have returned. What's going on, guys? I'm Chris and welcome back to another video. So today I'm reacting to your movie hot takes. This is part 2, a follow-up video to one that I did probably about a month ago now. There were almost 200 movie hot takes submitted, so I scrolled through and picked out about 30 or so to talk about here in this video. Before I do, let me know your movie hot takes in the comments down below. Hit that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell as I'm trying to reach my goal of 75,000 subscribers here on the channel. It would mean a lot. Without further ado, let's dive right into these hot takes. The first one's from Mr. Moon, saying the Super Mario Bros. Movie is one of the best animated or game adaptation films I've seen. Stunning visuals, great characters, humor that landed, amazing references, awesome cast and voices, and a fun, fast-paced adventure. I don't think the Super Mario Bros. Movie is even in the top 100 animated movies ever made. Like, I'm not gonna sit here and list 99 or 100 movies that I think are better than it. Like, it was fine at best to me. In fact, I think the movie was below average. I get, you know, Mario's a world-famous character and has been for decades, so I get that part of it, but the movie itself was just not that good. And like, I understand it's a movie targeted for kids, but there's tons of movies targeted for kids I've seen that I actually enjoy as like an adult, and this was not one of them. Yes, it's got a great voice cast and the visuals are great. I get that it's all well received. It's not my thing. Blake Porter says Batman, Will Arnett from the Lego Batman movie, is one of the top 3 best iterations of the character ever. You know what? I haven't seen the movie, so I can't really speak to that too much, but I will say I feel like that's already a stretch because I don't know if he's better than Pattinson's Batman, Bale's Batman, or Kevin Conroy, rest in peace, who did voice work for the character and of course in the Arkham games and a lot of the animated stuff. So I tend to disagree even though I haven't seen it, but I just can't envision a world where Lego Batman is top 3. Staying on topic of Batman, I Love Macaroon says, The Dark Knight Rises is better than Batman Begins. The villain is more interesting and themes are amazing. Also, I think Bruce crawling out of that pit is one of the best movie scenes ever. Let me talk about that last part first. You're 100% right. If you guys ever feel like you're down, you need something to pick you up, Google Bruce Wayne pit scene or The Dark Knight Rises pit scene. It will instantly get your blood going. You will feel like you want to run through a brick wall. I'm telling you, if you ever need motivation, pull up that scene. In terms of the first part of this comment, the actual hot take, I agree. I prefer The Dark Knight Rises over Batman Begins. I think Begins is a very solid origin, but The Dark Knight Rises is the most overhated film in the trilogy, and it really is an incredible finale. Bane, who is menacing, played by Tom Hardy. You've got Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character, who turns out to be a potential Robin in the future, but all around, I don't get the hate for this one. It is such an epic and satisfying conclusion. Red Charlie Boy says, Attack of the Clones is underrated. The final battle is one of the best in Star Wars. Attack of the Clones is one of my favorites growing up. Like, I watched it all the time. And then I tried to rewatch it a few years back and I was like, this movie really is a drag. It is the weakest prequel by far in my opinion, but at the same time there are elements that I love with this movie. The whole Detective Obi-Wan storyline where he's going to Kamino and getting entangled in this whole Jango Fett chase, that's some of the best to me. But of course I admire the final battle with, you know, Mace Windu pulling up, this part is over, and all the Jedi come out versus the droids, then the clones pull up. I remember watching it as a giddy little kid and setting up my toys during the scene. Like, I loved that movie. It's not as good as I remember, and it's the least rewatched prequel for me, but I do think it's slightly overhated. Like, I think a lot of people are like, it's the worst Star Wars movie. Give me that over the sequels, you know? I see where you're coming from, and Yoda, when he pulls up, around the survivors, a perimeter create. Very quotable movie. Frankie's channel with a take here that I think can't be real, right? Like, this can't be real. Fantastic Beasts and the Crimes of Grindelwald is my favorite movie from the whole Harry Potter franchise. Whether you believe this in your heart of hearts or not, or if it was just to get my attention, it worked, because I think that this is the worst Harry Potter universe film, Wizarding World film, I should say, and it's not even close. Like, the movie is so disoriented from the start, it's boring as hell, and it just does nothing magical. It lacks any compelling characters, or like I said, magic, which is what I go to the Harry Potter films for. It's a snooze fest. This movie put me to sleep when I watched it, and I'll never watch it again. It's a total bore, in my opinion, and I think most people will agree it's probably the worst of this entire franchise. Evan says, the original Justice League is great. The villain is pretty solid, and the love dynamic between Wonder Woman and Batman is great. But I did like the Apocalypse in Zack Snyder's Justice League. I haven't seen that movie since theaters, so did I miss a love story relationship between Wonder Woman and Bruce Wayne? I literally erased that movie from my head, so I don't know. I think the Justice League, the theatrical cut was, I remember just thinking it was terrible. It was under 2 hours because the studio mandated it, and I just thought it was really bad. The Snyder cut definitely improved on the villain and just the overall story, but that movie is pretty throwaway from what I recall. Spencer says, Revenge of the Sith is clearly the best Star Wars movie for me. It's time for me to get my hot take out. I love Revenge of the Sith, but it is the most overrated Star Wars movie, and people will take that out of context and say, Chris doesn't like Revenge of the Sith, he's a hater of the prequels. Nope, it's probably my 4th or 5th favorite Star Wars movie. In fact, it's probably my 4th, right behind the original trilogy. The thing is, it's become so popular to say this is the best Star Wars movie. I just don't agree. I think a lot of people praise Order 66 onward in the film, when we get, you know, the Obi-Wan Anakin duel, Yoda versus Palpatine, and the way it kind of ties into A New Hope. All that is awesome. But there's a whole other half of this movie that people sort of forget about. And it still falls victim to a lot of the issues with the prequel trilogy, which I love, don't get me wrong, but there's a lot of this political dialogue and unfortunately sort of boring, lackluster moments. There's an epic opening scene, then there's this whole debate with the Jedi Council and Anakin going undercover with Palpatine that gets a little slow, I'm not gonna lie. Still a very good movie, but I do think it is massively overrated and almost disrespectful to just be like, oh, it's better than the original trilogy for sure. Is it though? I don't think it is. Robert Pattinson will be the most loved Batman 30 years from now. Hell, he's the most loved Batman right now to me. I think most people loved his Batman. I think after he gets his trilogy, which is gonna happen, people will respect him even more. I do see what you're saying though. I think it takes time, just like with anything, to fully appreciate it, and it could be like a Daniel Craig thing where people loved him in the start, and then the more we got him, it's like, okay, he's just solidifying himself as the best over time. So I think that's what's gonna happen with Pattinson. But to me though, he's already the best. 2023's Worst Enemies says, my hot take, Spider-Man Far From Home is my favorite MCU movie. That one will probably get a lot of trash in the comments down below. It's not even a top 10 MCU movie for me, but I will say Far From Home is overhated. I enjoy the film quite a bit, especially Mysterio, and I just love Peter Parker as a character. I think Tom Holland does a wonderful job playing him, so I enjoy that movie quite a bit, and I always thought it was really overhated. Like, it's in a lot of people's probably bottom 5 in the MCU. I've seen people trash this one. I was never on board with that. I've liked this one from the start, pretty much. Toon Twist says, I think Jurassic World Dominion was great, and I think The Lost World is just as good as Jurassic Park. I'm gonna say this right now, Jurassic Park 2, which is The Lost World, that movie is pretty bad. Like, I didn't realize how underwhelming it was compared to the first Jurassic Park when I did my rewatch last summer. And when it comes to Dominion, I thought it was awful. Like, that's probably the worst of all the movies because it just abandons anything that the franchise has set up. Like, the main plot of this film focus on locusts. It's this whole DNA plotline that's just stupid. It's nonsense. Now, I know the movie made $1 billion. It was marketed as like this No Way Home type event where the originals were gonna unite with the new characters. That was sort of cool, but it just felt so forced. They really dropped the ball in concluding the Jurassic franchise. All right, let's hit a little speed round. Peacemaker is the best thing to come out of the DCU. I'm not gonna argue, you're actually probably right there. John Cena's performance is amazing and it added to the Suicide Squad. I hope we see more of those characters soon. The Force Awakens is the best Star Wars media put out since Revenge of the Sith. There was a point in time where I would say The Mandalorian was. I don't know if I can say that now, but we have had the Clone Wars and Rebels since then. I also love The Force Awakens. It's hard to say, definitely up for debate. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness is one of the best MCU films. Hell no. I know most people agree it's kind of a mixed bag. It is not a good movie. Avatar is a top 10 movie of all time. Disgraceful take in my opinion. This movie is wildly overrated, just like the sequel. I don't understand the hype for these at all, and I never will. I feel like Shazam 2 is underrated. I agree. I think this movie got a little too much hate. It was a fun movie. Like, I don't think it was as good as the first Shazam. I didn't love it, but I did enjoy my time with it. And that concludes the speed round. Ben says Rocky 4 is the best boxing movie ever. How can you say that when Rocky's the one that started the whole franchise? That's kind of how I feel. I think Rocky's better than Rocky 4, and I think Rocky 2 and 3 are better than Rocky 4. Staying in this Rocky verse, Rocky 3 is better than Rocky and Rocky 2. I can actually respect that, because Rocky 3 is where Rocky kind of goes to rock bottom, and I've said rock a lot, so I apologize. He has to get that eye of the tiger back. You know, Apollo's training him up. We got some great training montages and fights themselves. It embraces the 80s cheese. We get the song Eye of the Tiger by Survivor. There's a lot to love with Rocky 3. It's in contention for being better than those. I will not get mad at that hot take at all. Mr. Pickle says, love the first vid. Well, thank you. And there's 2 hot takes with this one. Everything Everywhere All at Once is kinda overrated. I thought the movie was great. I saw it once in theaters, but I haven't seen it, and it's probably been about 1 calendar year now since I've actually watched the movie. So I gotta watch that one again to get fresh thoughts, but I remember thinking it was really damn good at the time, so I wouldn't say it's overrated. And then Mad Max Fury Road, while looking great, lacks any interesting narrative to keep me wanting to watch it. I could not tell you what the plot is. I mean, yeah, the movie's visually incredible. Like, it has some gorgeous shots, and it's just non-stop action. There's really no one in the movie that I gave a shit about, so I kind of agree fully, and this is one of my hot takes historically, that I don't like this movie. I don't care for it ever, and I probably never will. Brandon says, never was a big fan of Dark Knight, or in fact, the whole trilogy. I love the Batman 2022, but the Christopher Nolan films never stuck with me. I disagree. I love them. To each their own, you know, and there are people out there who don't like the Dark Knight trilogy, and it's hard for me to wrap my brain around it. There was a point in time where I was like, are they overrated? This was about 3 years ago. Rewatched them, and I was like, no, I was just being dumb. Mike Entertainment says, hey man, hot take. The Last Jedi is a top 3 Star Wars film. I think there's a typo here. You mean bottom 3, right? No, to each their own again. But I think this movie is the beginning of the end for Star Wars. Essentially, the entire fandom was split in half after this, and it did way more damage than any good because there are so many irritating moments here, questionable moments for characters, goofy moments, and everything was set up so well in The Force Awakens. This movie kind of derailed the trilogy, and then Rise of Skywalker tried to fix and please everybody, and it just ended up pissing everybody off. This is the movie that pretty much broke the Star Wars fandom, unfortunately. So yeah, I kind of wish that it never came out or was done entirely differently. Movies and Train Studios says, I think Harry Potter is really overrated, but still pretty good. I just never want to go back and rewatch the series, even though I love the first 4 movies. I disagree. I think Harry Potter is the most consistently great franchise that we've ever gotten. I love Star Wars, but it has its downs, I'm not gonna lie. Harry Potter, all of the films, if you line them up, there is not one movie that's like, oh, that's the weak link, or that's really bad. Like, they're all very good to fantastic movies, and because of that, I disagree. They're very easy to rewatch. I try and rewatch it once a year minimum for me. Great, great, great movies that always have this magical escapism to them. Toxic Gamer 331. Morbius wasn't a bad movie. I disagree. I mean, I know that it was memed and everything. At the end of the day, if you sit down and try to watch that movie, at least for me, it stinks. Still don't know why it was released in theaters, or released ever. We got some slander for a beloved movie, so warning. Rocky is a drag from start to finish. The characters are emotionless, and the story, or what's of it, is the only redeeming factor. This upsets me, because I think that it is one of the great films of all time, and a lot of people agree it won Best Picture at the Oscars. It's beloved to this day. How can the characters be emotionless? How can you not feel something for Rocky and his story? He's this underdog dude who ends up getting this opportunity to fight Apollo Creed on the biggest stage. You just gotta love him, you know? He has this relationship with Adrian that develops. He's such a good dude. I mean, I don't know. I disagree strongly. I don't know how you can say there's no emotions. How can you watch him running up the stairs and in the training montage and not feel something? That's wild, actually, to me. LN Rocky says, the prequels are better than the original trilogy because they have better lightsaber duels and they have more action and the characters are way better. The characters are not better, in my opinion. Like, no. And I think Han, Luke, Leia, that trio is unmatched. I love Anakin and Obi-Wan and all that, just because there's these flashy, over-the-top lightsaber duels, which are cool, don't get me wrong. I don't know if that necessarily means they're better. The emotional weight of duels like Luke versus Vader in Empire or Luke versus Vader in Return of the Jedi, it just means a little bit more than the flashy visuals of, say, Obi-Wan and Anakin, which is one of the best duels in the entire franchise for sure. But sure, there's a lot more action in the prequels, but there's still action-packed moments in the original trilogy. There's just a lot more dialogue-driven scenes that sort of drive the story forward that I just think are better written in the original trilogy. Time for another speed round. Wakanda Forever was the best Phase 4 movie. I disagree. No Way Home and Shang-Chi are better, but Wakanda Forever is solid. Avengers Age of Ultron is super overhated. I agree. This movie's usually trashed by most people I've talked to. I think that it's really solid. It's probably like right in the middle of my MCU ranking. Ultron's a very solid villain, and it has a lot of memorable moments. Quantumania is the best Ant-Man film. I disagree. I think the first Ant-Man film is better, but Quantumania is better than Ant-Man and the Wasp, and Quantumania is the most overhated MCU movie, period. I can't wait till it comes to Disney Plus so I can watch it again. I had a blast with it. The Creed movies are better than Rocky movies. See, that's where it gets tough, because the Creed movies just feel like more Rocky movies to me. So saying the 3 Creed films are better than the 6 Rocky movies, I probably disagree, because I love Rocky 1, 2, 3, 4, and Balboa's solid, 5's the weak link. Creed 1 and 2 are amazing, but Creed 3 was to me, so that's hard to say. Junior says Toy Story 4 is the best Toy Story movie. This is easily the worst Toy Story movie to me. It's the most unnecessary because 3 was the perfect ending to everyone's story, and 4 made $1 billion. We all knew it would, and 5 that's going to come out eventually will make $1 billion, but it's not necessary to the story. It doesn't really serve a purpose to me. Like, I thought the movie was pretty good when I first saw it. Each time I rewatched the film, I had more negative thoughts about it, and it's really, really decreased overall for me. Winter Soldier is overrated. I've said this for a while, but I still always preface by saying it's in my top 10 favorite MCU movies, but in terms of it being the best MCU movie or a best comic book film of all time, I kind of disagree. And I've said this before, that I think The Winter Soldier is overrated, but not a bad movie. It's a great movie, but I don't think that it is the greatest Marvel film or the greatest superhero film of all time, which I have seen that level of praise for it countless times. So again, I totally see where you're coming from here. The Back to the Future films are mediocre. Now this one hurts. The first film is an all-timer, probably like top 10 favorite for me. The second movie is a damn good follow-up, and the third is by far the weakest, but I still have so much enjoyment with it. So to call them mediocre, I disagree strongly. I mean, they are amazing movies, and they deserve to be praised as one of the best trilogies out there, I'd say. The Lord of the Rings movies are very boring and hard to sit through. Strong disagree here. I think the Lord of the Rings trilogy is, if not the greatest trilogy of all time, a top 3 trilogy of all time. It's some of the most engrossing fantasy storytelling out there, and just storytelling in general. I'm glued to the screen, so invested in this journey, and just feel the stakes of every single scene. Everyone is so well understood and fleshed out. I mean, this is masterful storytelling, and so I strongly disagree with this take. And the last one here, No Way Home is very bad and basically only depends on fan service. Strongly disagree. I know a lot of people have started to share this same viewpoint. Of course, you've got the Toby Andrew fan service near the middle part of the film, and then they all swing together at the end, and it's amazing. You're relying on, you know, old villains, but at the same time, this is a story of Tom Holland's Peter Parker going on a journey of discovery, essentially, and loss. He's losing everyone near and dear to him by the end of the film in order to be Spider-Man, and he's understanding that's what it takes to protect the people out there. I gotta do what's right, and I gotta suffer loss in order to be who I'm meant to be, Spider-Man. It's a very powerful story, so I disagree, but I will admit on a rewatch it loses a little bit for me, but I still love the movie overall. But that's gonna do it for part 2 of reacting to your movie hot takes. Let me know some of your hot takes in the comments down below, as well as your thoughts on some of these hot takes that were featured in the video. Definitely hit that like button and subscribe and hit that notification bell, as I'm trying to hit my goal of 75,000 subscribers here on the channel. It will mean a lot. Stay tuned for more videos. I'm gonna try and make this a weekly series where I do it for different fandoms, whether that's Cobra Kai, Stranger Things, Marvel. If you check out my community tab, you know, I'll post there, like, comment down below your hot takes for this topic, and I'll kind of make it a weekly thing. I'm very much looking forward to it because I enjoy the hell out of doing these videos. But thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, I'll see you guys later.